Hello everybody and welcome to That's Football. Qatar have bid for Manchester United. What does that mean to you? You know, the wonder of That's Football for me is that it's not the United stand, it's a channel for everybody, and we do get to discuss and debate the big things. And I'm really interested to know what the rival fans are. I'm sure we've got some United fans watching as well, but I've spoken a lot about this on the United stand and we've been a live chat community, but I want to see the comments on this. I want to know what you think about Qatar buying Manchester United. They've bid for Man United, they're mega wealthy. What do you think about that? Because quite rightly, there is a lot of accusations against Manchester United fans at the moment of double standards, of hypocrisy. I've done videos on this channel, I've done tweets about, you know, oil money for Manchester City, Newcastle, you know, the issues around that, and, you know, how you just take that money and you're suddenly happy and dancing in the street, etc. How do people feel about this? Because I remember talking about Newcastle and I said, look, at the end of the day, they're very lucky. Man City were very lucky. That could have been Everton, it could have been Villa. It's like winning the lottery. It's like winning the lottery. And there is unquestionable bitterness and jealousy when Newcastle get that money, when Man City get that money. Of course there is. And I think there's a fine line between you want that and then being bitter about it and coming up with other things. And I think that's what we're seeing now. Do I believe that football is becoming unpalatable? Yes. I've said this for a very long time. It's all about the money. I'm fortunate enough that when I was growing up, there was no Sky Sports. There was no big TV deals. You got one match a week on a Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock, and that could be anybody. That could be the equivalent of Brighton playing Brentford. That could be the picked game. It wasn't always Man United or Liverpool. One game a week. You got highlights, match of the day, and that was it. And teletext, which was basically this. It's like text that you could log onto your TV and see the score change every minute, or you could listen to the radio, and that was it. That's all I grew up with, and loved football. Absolutely loved football. I wouldn't change my upbringing around football when I was a kid for anything. And yet the access, I knew nothing about European players. The only thing I knew was when England played a friendly or if it was a World Cup. I didn't know who played for Bayern Munich or anything like that. You just didn't have access to that sort of information. There was no internet. You couldn't watch them. It was like a different world. And I loved it because I loved football. Even though I was getting less than 1% of what you get now in relation to the access to information. Stats, what were they? What was an assist? You know, none of that existed. But I loved it. And I had such a small glimpse of what football was. But in a way, it was pure because it was just about the small quantity of football I got. What it is now, it's wall to wall, it's brand deals, it's this, it's that, it's always there. You're so involved. And I'm not saying that that's not great. The evolution of being able to watch Barcelona or Bayern Munich whenever you want is fantastic. But the money in the game has changed the game. If Man United get bought by Qatar, Man United have got a huge fan base. We've got, you know, huge heritage. And then you've got huge wealth. I can understand people's concern about that. I really can. Done in the right way, Man United could be dominant, like Real Madrid are in Spain. We could be absolutely dominant, and that as a fan is very appealing because you always want to win. And I understand why people would be bitter about that, whether it's Arsenal fans, Liverpool fans, anybody. You know, you know. If someone said to me tomorrow, Man City have been relegated and they're never going to be able to spend any money again, I'd be happy because it's a rival gone. Let's be honest. We're not moral crusaders, most of us. We want to win and we want rivals to fail. When we saw the 100 charges against Man City last week, let's be honest, it's not because we think, oh yeah, they've been cheating or anything like that. It's like, I hope they have been cheating because then they'll get points deducted, all titles took off them, relegated, and that'll be a rival gone, and that opens the door up for everybody else. Let's be honest, that's what's going on here. Let's be honest, Man United being bought by Qatar, if it happens, people are jealous and bitter about it because they're thinking, oh my God, Man United are going to dominate. If they were buying your club, would you be the same? I think the moral issue, and we all know, we've just had a World Cup in Qatar, so we're all very acutely aware of what accusations and things go on in that area of the world. But a World Cup took place there. Saudi Arabia owned Newcastle, Abu Dhabi owned Man City. Let's not start pointing. I think it's really unfair when people start pointing the finger at Man United because Qatar might buy Man United, and yet we've had a World Cup that everyone watched literally 3 months ago in Qatar. It's like Man United are the first club in history to take money from the Middle East. Oh, look, that can't happen. That can't happen. We've literally just watched a World Cup in that country, and now you're saying that they can't buy Man United because of, you know, human rights issues or whatever else the issue is. And I'm not saying that those issues don't exist, but I'm just saying, are we not hypocrites here? Hello, Qatar World Cup, you know, you've got TV journalists, presenters, ex-players who are dead against it, but are over there earning the money, and then they don't want Man United to be owned by it. I mean, I think the silence is deafening actually from a lot of those people, because they know if they start saying anything against it, they're going to get, well, you've just spent the World Cup doing that. So there's a hypocrisy in that. There are noble people out there who have these very strong opinions, and they had very strong opinions about the World Cup as well, Saudi Arabia, everything like that. But it can't be a barrier for Manchester United to be bought by Saudi Arabia or Qatar or Dubai or anything like that, because that horse is already bolted. Money in football isn't, in my opinion, great. What's next? Who buys Man City from Abu Dhabi? Who buys Man United from Qatar? Who buys Newcastle from Saudi Arabia? Those three entities are the richest three entities in the world, or some of them. Who's going to buy them from them? That's the next step for me. Who buys them, or does the Premier League? I mean, Gary Neville was on about American consortiums buying I remember this actually. Gary Neville was on about American owners of the Premier League. Well, what if the Middle East just buys all of the Premier League and the Premier League? You know, so this is what I mean. It's like there is no criminal in this and there is no good guy in this. The reality is football is money. And I think if you just start off with there and say it's very sad that football's become about billionaires, because it used to be very, very different, like I said at the start. Man United being bought by Qatar, or Liverpool being bought by Qatar, or Arsenal being bought by Qatar, it's not a bump in the night. I'm not surprised by that happening. It's the way it's going. I said this a few weeks ago when Man United were put up for sale. Now's the time to jump on this train, because if you ignore it, all due respect, Spurs carry on with their ownership model. They're just going to sink further and further down the league. Arsenal will start to struggle at some point, because Kroenke may be rich, but does he have the rich wealth of a Newcastle, a Man City, and potentially of a Man United? There was talk of Amazon being interested in Man United. I think at some point somebody like that will buy a Premier League football club. I just think if you want to compete, you've got to be in the conversation of a Chelsea, a Man City and a Newcastle now. And Man United are just getting into that conversation. Liverpool will need to do it. Arsenal will need to do it. Other clubs will need to do it. It's the next phase. I think the Premier League's brilliant at the moment. It's very competitive. But I think in 3 or 4 years, it probably won't be very competitive again, because there'll be 5 or 6 super wealthy clubs. Man United obviously probably going to be one of those. And then the Brightons and everybody else will just be, you know, where they were 15 years ago, where they compete in the league, but they can't touch the top 6. So it's the cycle, isn't it? We've got a very good Premier League at the moment, but unless you're going to get super wealthy owners, that's the way it's going to be. But underpinning it all, I wanted to get your opinions on this, because personally, I remember talking about Newcastle, and yeah, I said, look, I don't like it. I don't like all the money in football, because I think it makes it a 2-horse race between Man City and Newcastle. But I can't sit here and deny Newcastle fans being excited about it. It's like winning the lottery. And of course, I admitted it at the time, I've said it about Man City as well. Of course, there's a bitterness and a jealousy. Of course, I'm jealous of the fact that Newcastle and Man City have got super wealth. And, you know, they're definitely going to be in the Champions League for the next 50 years. And they're definitely going to be competing for titles. 100%. 100% that's going to happen. And 100% that's bitterness and jealousy. If my club is super wealthy now, wherever that money comes from, you've got to make your own personal choice. I agree. But if you're asking me as a Man United fan, or I'm asking an Arsenal fan or a Liverpool fan, do you need to be super wealthy to succeed? You're a liar if you say no. You might not like it, but you're a liar if you say no. You need to be super wealthy to compete, because we've already got super wealthy 2 clubs in our league who are competing. They're both in the top 4. One of them's just won the Premier League for the 2nd time in a row last year and is probably going to win it again. If you want to compete, you need to be super wealthy. We as the fans didn't create that monster. We just have to accept it. Or we don't, and we walk away from the sport, which many of us won't do because it's our life. And people who've died from the friends and family, it was their life as well. So walking away is not an easy thing to do. But we don't control where this is going. And super wealthy is what is needed. So of course people are going to be bitter and jealous about Man United. I was the same about Newcastle. But it's the way it's going. And let's be honest, the Liverpools, the Arsenals, the Spurs, they need this. Because Chelsea, Man United, Newcastle, Man City are sort of on the path to that already. Get your comments in below. Thanks for watching. Smash a like. We've got watch-alongs for you today. Arsenal against Villa at lunchtime as well. Take care.